If you're seeing somebody getting discriminated by virtue of how they identify, say something. Because the mere fact that you're keeping quiet means you are condoning
participating
in hate being served towards another human being.
Today, Namibia is known to have one of the best constitutions on the African continent. But when it comes to matters of legal recognition and protection for gender, sexual diversity, and sex worker communities, there are still areas that need improvement. Gender-based violence, or SGBV, experienced by LGBTIQ and sex worker persons often goes unreported, as the definition of GBV does not highlight all spheres of genders, and protections are not inclusive of the queer and sex worker bodies. Mercedes von Cloete, as well as Deyoncé Naris, is joining us from Diversity Alliance Namibia to tell us a bit more about the importance of covering these issues and putting them on the table. Good afternoon, ladies, and thank you so much for joining me.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us on this very important day.
International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
Let's kick off. Diversity Alliance Namibia. Can you tell us a bit about the work that is done by the organization, as well as what individual roles you play?
Okay, so do I go first?
Madam D, you know what's up.
So the Diversity Alliance of Namibia is sort of a consortium of organizations. It has about 10 memberships consisting of LGBTI plus sex worker organizations, leadership. Part of their work is advocating for the protections for LGBTIQ plus persons, so whether it is in the areas of labor, or whether it is the protection of children in education areas, whether it's feminist work, community work, because we also have organizations that work with rural persons and women and young girls. And so it's quite a lot of advocacy work, but then we implement through our partners, and our partners are essentially the ones that do the groundwork and work in the communities. So a lot of our partners are diverse in terms of how they implement their work. Some work very heavily in the human rights space in terms of trying to influence policy, trying to perhaps advocate for new policy, trying to advocate for protections. Then others do quite a lot of the humanitarian work, so with COVID hitting, making sure that our people are getting their essential needs, that we are meeting some of the COVID regulations, because we know then some of the mainstream support was not necessarily reaching the LGBTIQ plus communities. So vast levels of work. I work as the advocacy officer, so currently maintaining a project that really advocates for the repeal of punitive laws that exist within the country, but also speaking to protecting the current protections that exist for women.
Absolutely. Mercedes, what about you? What role do you play in the organization?
Well, Jay, you know, I've always just been one to help amplify anything, whatever cause it is that I believe in. And I have experienced that every so often we sit back and we say, but I don't understand how to work with sex worker communities. You know, I don't understand terminologies. So it is my absolute pleasure. I've been learning so much. I've just recently joined the team to work on the campaign with Deyoncé. So so I'm there to give support in terms of making the tea also when necessary,
if necessary, yes.
Because we need as much people to understand that you don't need a specific skill set or expertise when it comes to just matters that are important socially. So I'm learning, and it's been quite an insightful.
Deyoncé, thank you very much for that descriptive background on the Diversity Alliance of Namibia. It's quite, what can I say, relieving to hear about how different organizations which are building spaces through our communities have united to go for the course of fighting this one fight. You don't find that a lot in many of the spaces that have an impact on our social ills in our society. But let's talk about some of the challenges. A lot of countries all over the world have broken the bias boundaries. They have built spaces for LGBTQI people and sex workers to thrive. But in Namibia, there are obviously so many more challenges that we face. Let's talk about just day-to-day, being this human being from this particular community living in Namibia. What are the challenges that are faced?
Gosh.
You guys can go ahead.
Where do we start? Because on our way over here, we were just sharing driving past Vernil, and we looked at the taxi rank, and we were all like, oh my gosh, this is the most traumatizing place for transgender women. Because just trying to get on a taxi, and I was sharing with Mercedes them that month end, girl goes shopping, and leaving the venue, leaving Vernil, you have to go through the taxi rank. And this taxi driver was very adamant on trying to persuade other taxi drivers not to get me into his car.
Wow.
And he kept using all kinds of words.
The slurs.
He kept trying to divert people not to get into the same car that I got in because of the way I identify.
All that effort, all that energy, when he should be making his money.
All that energy, I tell you, that sometimes people spend, and I don't know if it is because people don't understand. Some of it has to do a lot with cultural context, where people come from. You know, some of it is really messaging that's put out there depending on who decides to speak, whether it's a political leader or whether it's a religious leader, and then you find somebody who would demonize LGBTI persons. So now that is the basis of this taxi driver, because he feels he wants to tell his comrade not to put bad luck in his car.
Which is very strange, you mentioning that, demonizing, and it's not only specific context and specific slurs always given to one particular community. It's the sex workers go through the same thing, as well as the LGBTQI community, meaning that human beings are being faced with this demonizing every single day. Do you have some challenges that you would like to add? Please, Mercedes.
I mean, I'm a strong advocate for everything that doesn't have to do with violence. I think after COVID especially, and these 2 years, in being in such uncertainty as to what course we should take, I think there's a greater need for a little bit more empathy, a little bit more compassion, understanding, you know. And as you are also aware, I only recently was fortunate enough to be able to have justice sway in my favor a little bit, you know, because the truth always prevails. So I'm very much here as a very proud transgender woman and a daughter of the Namibian soil.
And a representation of the fight.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, so there was also a day where I just woke up on whichever side of the bed that I choose to, and something like that happened to me. You know, so you can never say that won't be me. And, you know, we come from families, we've got parents, we've got incredible support systems, we've got people that love us and celebrate us, you know. So it's important that we continue the conversation where it doesn't have to do with what we do in our private spaces and what our genitalia, or that our genitalia should necessarily dictate how we choose to express ourselves and who we choose to love in present day Namibia, especially in 2022.
Come on now. Come on now, woman. Tell us, what does Diversity Alliance Namibia do in terms of advocating now in particular for the legal and gender recognition of the LGBTIQ plus community and sex worker persons in Namibia? Like, what's the work that you're currently doing?
Maybe
advocacy, chief of advocacy, please. Deyoncé, yes.
Jules, maybe you can speak about the campaign, because it's
currently
recent that we're currently working on.
I mean, we do a lot of work. So we've submitted submissions to the Law Reform Commission in terms of recommendations when they're discussing the absolute laws and looking at punitive repeal. And then what we're working on at the moment is what I call the mother of all projects.
The mother of all projects.
That has Mercedes excited in the office because she's doing the communication stuff. But it really is around advocating for the repeal of the punitive laws that exist that criminalize same-sex activity amongst particularly consenting males. And when they say males, which then ropes along transgender women
or in the
because of the bodies that we come in and disregards our gender identities and expressions. So some of the conversations that we're doing is creating awareness. So we're out here trying to interact with media,
having dialogue that is inclusive,
these conversations,
diverse, you know, so that it's not, if I may, I mean, I was having a conversation yesterday where it was very disheartening to like hear that the us versus them thing is still happening. You know, that we are not normal because we don't fit into the binary.
To the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which sort of translates to us being abnormal. So it's very much having demystifying the entire Pandora's box, basically.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of excuses where ignorance is concerned, and that just has to stop, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like if we're talking about one Namibia, one nation, and as a country that is also signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals,
Yes.
you know, it's about no one being left behind.
So does the Constitution
So
also speak about no
it's
one being left, regardless.
Absolutely.
Of- yes,
So
yes.
that's the conversation that we're having around diversity, inclusion, what is socially acceptable,
Yes.
and how do we factor in? Where do we factor in, and or why do we not fit in? Why are we? Why when it comes to us or two people that are consenting adult males that would like to get married, why should it be a civil union and not an actual marriage? Because there are actual legal differences between the two. So my thing is, if I want to celebrate or have access to certain rights and privileges, I should think about what it makes the other person feel.
Yes.
If I am the one actively
Yes.
advocating for and standing in the way for them just living their authentic truth and sharing love in whichever way they want to share. Because it's a conversation about love and respect and all of those things that we're all supposed to be grounded with growing up, and
putting those differences on the table for each and every single one. Absolutely.
Developing the communications pieces.
Absolutely.
So to be able to spread wider awareness around, for the first time, the Alliance is working with friends and family of
That's
LGBTI
what
persons,
it is.
Decentralizing the
inclusive of the conversation,
Yeah.
to make sure that we are able to represent the other side of the conversation.
Yes,
Because a lot of the times,
yes.
I think the conversation is what we are experiencing as
LGBT, but
persons,
not of the
but we're
people
not
who are the
having
support
discussion
systems,
with
the
media.
families who have this experience and have been loving this person and who can tell the story from another point of view as well.
So
I
we're
think
trying
that's
to
beautiful.
share some of those stories.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Finally, I have to let you guys go at some point. We could have this conversation for all day. And I think we've covered some very important parts. But how can ordinary Namibians, the everyday Namibians, support these marginalized communities? How can Namibians stand up and be more actively involved in this conversation? And is there a possibility to come and knock on the door and be welcomed to ask any questions if necessary?
I mean, well, with us, it's an open door policy. When you want to understand, I always keep saying to people, ask the question why to understand, not with any malpractice thoughts.
Or hidden agendas in the back of
it.
it.
And I think I love the way you started the conversation around everyday situations where if you're seeing somebody getting discriminated by virtue of how they identify, say something. Because the mere fact that you're keeping quiet means you are condoning
Participating.
and participating in hate being served towards another human being. So it's just small things like that. When the security guard is trying to divert me here at the vernal toilet and you notice and you're like, no, this is my sister. She can come in.
Step
because,
in.
You know, step in.
Yeah.
Be actively participate.
Play
in some
your
of the
part as a human
conversations.
being.
Yes, Togoba. Speak as the auntie and the sister because you're also going through
and
stuff.
as the brother and the boyfriend and the uncle and the
Absolutely.
father, you know, I've been so fortunate to have really experienced, especially over the last couple of years. It's not a literal embrace as us women embrace each other, but there's something beautiful about the male folk when they really open themselves up to just trying to understand.
Yeah.
So, and when you're connecting beyond all of the superficialities and just meeting each other as human beings, you know, all of those surface things don't matter. And I was also a normal person at some point.
It didn't sound right to me even. I'm like, what do you mean?
So there's this one saying that something that I read. Sometimes you have to like use your wounds and turn them into wisdom.
Nice.
And how do you get to that space of wisdom? You immerse yourself into wanting to understand, wanting to feel, wanting to put yourself in those shoes. Well, I'll be careful because we wear some killer heels, but that's not an excuse. So, and Namibia has always just been a country that has really understood the diversity, because that's who we are. That's what we are, through all of our ethnicities and
Our
all
languages,
our different
our
languages,
beings,
our
yes.
cultures, so it's like, why can we not just extend that diversity a little bit further? It's that much more further.
Absolutely.
And make Namibia as colorful and as beautiful as the stunning studio is. And and it takes ordinary, normal people like yourself to say like, our door is always open.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
That's
it takes
right.
ordinary, normal people. When it comes to this normal conversation, just know that you, as the normal person listening, have also a part to play.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon and for coming to share this wisdom with us. I believe that there is a door that's open that says we are ready to talk and have this conversation. When we go out into our streets, we can have these conversations come out there by the table. But when it comes to the broader one where everybody's welcome, we want to hash, we have a bigger part to play. Absolutely. I call it #OneHuman. So let's stick around for that one and see.
Yes, and #unboxing taboo.
Hello. Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
Before we go, social media, email, where can we contact Diverse Alliance Namibia?
So you can, at the moment, we're busy setting up all of our comms pieces, but you can reach out to myself at Deyoncé Naris 89 at gmail.com, and probably let me leave it with the email.
Let's keep it like that. Yes, let's leave it with the email. That's it, 89 at gmail.com. All right.
That is where you can reach us at the moment. Once all of our social media stuff is set out, we will most definitely be letting the public know so that you can reach, because the organization is for the people.
Absolutely.
By the people.
Each one reach one and each one teach one. I'm in a whole school, darling. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. And yes, the door is always open for this conversation here on our platform.
We might have 99 problems, but a lack of love should never be one of them.
Amen.
Thank you, Shay.
Amen. Amen. Spoken like a true advocate, spoken like a true human being. She says, Deyoncé Naris 89 at gmail.com for more information, to find your place around the fire, around the table, for the conversation to actually progress into a brighter future for all Namibians, for that whole one nation. For me, Shay, it's also been a beautiful afternoon in your company. Make sure to do stay tuned tonight, 9 FM. There's so much more coming your way, like the TED Radio Hour from 7 p.m. till 8, so stay tuned.